Okay, let's make a map. So just a reminder, on your C file under HTY 599 labs, you should have all these different lab folders, and we're looking specifically for lab 5, visualizing variables. And you can download the whole folder, like that, or I guess up here. Or better yet, just download the data folder is all you really need. These two are where I got the information from, so they're there for your reference, or if you want to go kind of redo some of my work because you might want to be more particular or something. So that's where the data came from, these two PDFs, but the data folder is what we're interested in. It has the QGIS project file, all of the shape files, and a couple of raster background files, should you desire them. Actually, I think it doesn't. You should have the hill shade already from a previous lab. So it just has the shape files. Okay, once you download that, it should look something like this. And you can drag and drop your hillshade and DEM if you want to use those. But in all of our thematic maps, I'm not going to use these at all, so you should be fine. Remember, this is what it looks like on your Windows browser, because Windows sees a shapefile as 5 separate files. But when you open it in Q sees them only as one file, right? Because to a GIS program, a shapefile, that bundle of 5 things is just one thing, right? It reads them all at once. And so when you open up your project file _ thematic map, it should look something like this. There might be a thematic layer turned on. But just remember that this project file is really a small pointer file, right? If I actually look at how big this thing is, it's only 411 kilobytes. It doesn't really, it doesn't store a lot of data. It really just stores our visualizations of the data. The files that are bigger are the shapefile for countries Europe is 5 megabytes. The ocean one is 7. So you can see that the real meat or the heft of the weight of the files is actually in the shape files, not in the project file. So you open up that project file and it tells the data how to appear. And if you were to turn on any one of these particular layers here, you might say, well, where is this layer coming from? What shapefile is that? Well, I've really just labeled this something different. It's actually just the countries Europe shapefile. The countries Europe shapefile is being visualized as a choropleth population map, right? So if you hover over any one of these layers, you'll see the label, and then underneath it says C:users bmeter desktop data, and then countries Europe.shp. And it's the same for all of them, because I hope you can remember that the shapefile is just the same file. It's a set of areas and attributes, and each of these layers I just kept adding it again, and we turn them on and off as we want. And each of these layers, the choropleth one, the proportional symbol one, the gains and losses one, they're all just different versions of us looking at the same data set. And that data set, just for reference, is this attribute table that is connected to these shapes, and it's the same exact file for each visualization. So I'm sorry to bang that into your head, but it's really important that we're not actually changing the nature of the file, we're just changing how it appears. So I'm not going to go into all of these. You can explore them, right? You've seen how with the choropleth one, I divided 2 columns and multiplied by 100 to get percent population. You'll find that with the gains and losses, I had to do some fancier stuff to try to get that to work out. Not going to worry about it. We're making our own new thematic layer, which is going to be the histogram bar chart of the gains and losses. It's really just the raw Jewish population, and the bar chart will demonstrate the up or down, the gain or the loss. But right now, all I've got turned on for my features is the ocean, and that's good enough because I want to just kind of keep it simple. Though it might be nice to see the different countries. So to make the different countries, I actually think I want to show their relative allegiance at the outset of the war in 1939. And remember, USSR at this point is not part of the Allies. It's kind of just a belligerent nation on its own. So just keep that in mind. But I can just drag in this countries Europe, right? Just because let's say I want to categorize them by something new. I drag it in. The default is always going to be a random color, just a single symbol with a black border. And so we say, okay, great, we have our file, but it looks it's not how I want it to look. I want it to show the allegiance of each country. So the first thing I usually do when I bring in a file as another kind of layer or instance is I want to name it something meaningful to me. So when I rename this layer, again, I'm not renaming the file, it's just a layer. I want to rename it something that kind of makes sense. So I'm going to just say, all right, 1939, because I know that that's when this shapefile was made. If I have been paying attention to my original labs when we started using this, 1939, and I'm going to say allies, let's say allies and belligerents. And that's just kind of a key for me when I open up my project file to remember what this layer even means. So to actually change the symbology, I can either double click this layer or I can right click it and go to properties, right? So you go to properties, and then when the properties window opens, you go to style. And in general, we're going to be using the diagrams and the style kind of sections of this GUI. This is called a graphic user interface. It's just a window. So we use the style window and the diagram window. Under the style window, right now it's a single symbol of a random color, but I want it to be categorized, right? We're not going to do graduated. Graduated would be a choropleth map similar to the percentage, but we're doing categorized because we're dealing with nominal data, right? So categorized, and to choose our column, I hope you can remember from looking at the attribute table, we've got foreign powers. So we grab that guy right there. Say at random colors right now, which is fine because I'm going to change them all individually. Go to random colors and say classify, and it pulls out these individual classes. We have some that are called allies, some are belligerent, some are German protectorates, some are German but they're Soviet occupied, Italian occupied, neutral. So let's just see what it looks like. I'm just going to take the random color scheme and hit apply, and okay, that's pretty loud. I don't want it to be that loud. And I don't really like the color scheme very much. But what I want is I want something similar to this, but I want it to be a lot quieter so that when my bar charts appear showing Jewish population, that those are the focus. So I think I'm just going to make myself a plan right now. And my plan is that I want to change the borders to be a thin white line so that they sit in the background. I want the allies to be a mute, kind of dark blue. And I want the belligerents to be a mute kind of reddish color. And I think that these other versions, the German protectorate, will be belligerent. And I'm going to make all of the belligerent ones the exact same. I'll make them a mute red. And then the neutral, I'll just make a gray. And so to change the boundary symbol to white, I can do that all at once by selecting everything. So shift click everything, and I'm going to go to change symbol. And so instead of changing each instance, I'm going to change all of them so that under simple fill here, it's kind of confusing, but once you get used to it, it's fine. Under simple fill, the outline I can change to white like that, right? So remember hue, saturation, value from before. Value at 100 is white, and that's fine. So and if you add the saturation up, then the default is for it to be red, which is 0, but I want this saturation to be 0 and the value to be 100, and that's white. You can also just go over here and just click around, and way to the left is always going to give you desaturated colors, and then this bar goes from dark to light, so you can play with that. But if the bar over here is at the top and this is all the way to the left, you're always going to get white. So that's kind of works. So I'm going to say white, happy, and And I'll make the outline, I don't know, let's just stick with 0.2. I like whole rounded kind of amounts, and this is in millimeters, so just keep that in mind for when it comes out on print. 0.2 millimeters, I say OK, and now I say apply, and you can see the change, and they sink into the background a little bit. I think it looks kind of nice. So now I have to do the dirty work, which is going in individually to change each of these colors, and so I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'll just show you the first one. I'm going to do the allies, which we've only got 2 countries that are considered allies in this so far, and the 2 allies are France and the UK. Others join eventually, but at the outset that's what it is. And so I double click the allies, and again I can either go to simple fill, or at this point I think I can just hit the color here and go for it. So I go to color, and I can drag the hue up here to blue because that's what I want to have. And good blue hue is somewhere around 200, usually maybe 220. So I like to type in the values. So 200 seems pretty good. Well, maybe a little more. 220, I like that. And I want to make it a dark muted blue, and that's kind of hard to do actually. So I think muted usually means it's a desaturated, right? So instead of being a strong blue, it's going to be a grayish blue like this. See how it's getting grayer? But it's starting to get too light, just like the ocean. So I'm going to back down this value and make it darker. So let's say somewhere around 220, 30, and 70 for our hue, saturation, and value kind of numbers. So I think that's okay. Let's say OK. OK. I can hit apply and watch it change. Apply. There they go. And now I'm going to do the same thing, and remember I'm making all 3 of these the same color because they're all, or sorry, all 4 of these the same color because they're all belligerent, or they're controlled by belligerent states at the outset. And so, and it looks like Poland obviously is occupied, so we're just going to consider it part of the belligerent area, even though that's maybe not completely semantically correct. So belligerent, double click this guy, and I'm going to change the color here again. This time I want the hue to be red, but I want it to be desaturated red. So let's go ahead and just see if our 30-70 works again. 30-70. It's kind of a gross paint watercolor, but we'll see what happens. I'm going to say OK. Apply. That's not bad. It's a little dark. You know, maybe I want to lighten it up a bit. It's just cartography. It goes on forever. It never really ends. So you have to be careful. Say 85. Yeah, I like it a little lighter like that. See, I just bumped up the value and kept it desaturated. So this is where it just, you can try to learn it, but you have to play around and see what it looks like. Apply. That looks pretty good. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to cut out from you here for a second. I'll see you on the other side. I'm going to turn the rest of the belligerents to this kind of light magenta red color and make neutral gray. So go ahead and do that, and I'll see you in a couple seconds. Okay, I hope you got here, and one trouble you might have run into is all of your reds look slightly different, and just remember that if you use values, right, 0, 30, 85, or RGB values, you can get the same exact color every time. So what I did is I just said, all right, 0, 30, 85 is my red, and I went and I typed that into each one. So that's kind of little shortcut, is to make sure you write down these values and you can replicate them easily. So that's great, and I think I'm happy with my allies and belligerents base map. I think it looks fine. It's not bad.